Muhammadu Buhari arrives Abuja after 5 days vacation.
More ministries and parastatals defend budget at National Assembly.
Under the 2015 capital budget, the sum of 185 million was appropriated, but only 92 million was released.
Wife of president campaigns for an end to female genital mutilation in Nigeria.
The role of our development partners, the UN and other international organizations, including embassies of foreign nations in Nigeria, and their continued support in the campaign to end this harmful traditional practice.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on managing the twin monsters of breast and prostate cancer in Nigeria.
Now, many Nigerians are dying silently from cancer and cancer-related diseases, and needless too. And I say that for very simple reasons. The first reaction on diagnosis of the ailment is disbelief, or what some people, of course, refer to as lip-tight syndrome, denial, you know, the kind of God forbids reaction.
Well, the usual first reaction, as you have indicated, in such terminal ailments is that of denial. And then the hospital is often the last place patients would go to seek help. And medical experts are now saying that most patients, when they do present themselves, are often exhibiting the terminal stages of the ailment, which accounts for the increase in cancer-related fatalities in the country today.
All right, and available statistics from the National Cancer Control Program, NCCP, estimates 60% of cancer cases in Nigeria occur in women, while the men account for 39.8%. Now, NCCP also notes that breast cancer accounts for 40% of women cancer, followed by cervical cancer, lymphomas, and ovarian cancers.
Well, in men, prostate cancer is common, accounting for some 29% of male-related cancers. This, of course, followed by colorectal cancer, and breast cancer is, however, the commonest, as Claire said, amongst women, but it takes quite a while before it knocks down the victim. On the other hand, cervical cancer kills a woman in Nigeria, according to statistics, every hour. That's amounting to about 10,000 fatalities on an annual basis.
We also recognize that breast cancer affects 1 or 2 in 25 Nigerian women. Now, currently, according to experts, the country contends with about 2 million recorded cases of cancer. 30 Nigerian women die every day of breast cancer, while 1 Nigerian woman dies every hour of cervical cancer.
Well, there are other statistics which we did not reel out now concerning prostate cancer, which of course is an affliction of men. But the question we're asking is, can this be treated either effectively upon early detection? And what is it that a victim needs to, or a carrier, sorry, not a carrier now, what is it that somebody who's been diagnosed of such cancer, what does he need to do in order to survive? There have been stories of cancer survivors and all of that. And what are the causative factors? Why are we seeing an increment in the figures that we've read out this morning?
All right, well, Kingsley, just before we begin our program, there are predictions, and very frightening one, that by 2020, cancer cases will rise to about 42 million in Nigeria, while death rate will vary from 72.7 over 100,000 cases in men and 76 over 100,000 cases in women. But the good thing, like Kingsley said, is that cancer can be prevented and managed if detected on time. Unfortunately, however, despite much talk about ways of tackling the problem, not much improvement have been made in the management and treatment of the disease. So many are dying every day. Today on Good Morning Nigeria, we will focus on ways of managing cancers in Nigeria, especially the ones that are manifesting at alarming rate: breast and prostate cancers. I am Claire Delabo Abdul-Razak. Again, I welcome you to the today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. It's live on the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. Welcome again to the program, in the course of which we have our regular segments. This will include newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, as well as arts and entertainment. We're going over to the newsroom now, and here is Rhoda Obo with the morning news. Hi, Rhoda.
Good morning, Kingsley and Claire. Good morning, Nigeria, and many thanks for joining us here on the News Bits. President Muhammadu Buhari has returned to Abuja after his 5-day vacation in the United Kingdom. State House correspondent Adamu Sambe reports that the president arrived in Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport at 8:30 Wednesday evening. He was received on arrival by the Chief of Staff, Abba Kyari, Minister of the FCT, Muhammad Musa Bello, the Inspector General of Police, Solomon Arase, and other senior government officials. President Buhari started his vacation last week Friday after his 3-day official visit to the United Kingdom, before which a formal letter of notification was transmitted to the National Assembly, allowing Vice President Yemi Osinbajo to act as the president. Meanwhile, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has reassured the nation that the full weight of the federal government's force will be deployed to hunt the perpetrators of Tuesday's bombing attack on IDP camp in Dikwa, Borno State. He gave the assurance in a condolence letter to the people and government of Borno State over the incident. Professor Osinbajo has therefore directed that formidable security in and around IDP camps in the country be beefed up and received measures put in place to guard against future occurrences. He prayed that Almighty God will grant the people comfort and injured quick recovery. Troops of the 152 Task Force have cleared a terrorist camp around Bulungana village in Borno State and rescued 181 people held hostage. Acting Director, Army Public Relations disclosed this at a media briefing at the Army headquarters, Abuja.
Across Boko Haram terrorist camp at Bulagana. They cleared the camp and rescued 40 civilians that were held hostage by the terrorists. The same unit also rescued 181 persons and captured 8 Boko Haram terrorists. Among those rescued were 18 men, 90 women, and 77 children. The screening and profiling of those rescued is ongoing before their movement to internally displaced persons camp. Well, those captured terrorists are undergoing interrogation.
We turn our attention now to legislative matters as the National Assembly has held its first ever engagement with civil society organizations on the budgetary process, seeking their input into the 2016 appropriation bill now before the legislature. Senate President Abubakar Bukola Saraki presided over the interactive session attended by senators and members of the House of Representatives.
In this year's budget, there is almost no line item that is dealing with the intervention on maternal and child health in this 2016 budget.
A budget of 200 million naira for the passage of the petroleum industry bill. And the question should be asked, which PIB is being talked about?
So all the committees who are engaging with different ministries now will receive a summary of this report so that they can take into account the observations. Ideal situation, which we hope may be a bit late for 2016, is for 2017 we look at the possibility of participating at the committee level.
The initiative underscores the importance of CSOs as veritable partners in enthroning good governance and enhancing national economic development.
Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, alongside heads of parastatals under the Information and National Orientation, have appeared before the Senate Committee on Information and National Orientation for interaction over the 2016 budget proposal.
Under the 2015 capital budget, the sum of 185 million was appropriated, but only 92 million was released.
Our equipment are in most cases like 30, 40 years old. We need to begin to upgrade them.
NTA and FRCN must present to the committee equipment they required specifically in the Northeast, especially mobile stations for radio and TV. So the enemy cannot find them and they can be broadcasting non-stop.
It could be the turning point for both FRCN and NTA in defining the modus operandi of our own outlook.
So far, so good. It went very well, and the process can be commended.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria has reacted to criticism that followed some of the judgments of the Supreme Court in recent days, saying that those who condemned the judgments are not aware of the position of the law on such issues. He stated this at a special valedictory court session held in honor of a retiring Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Sefulani Komasi.
The judiciary is duty bound to act in accordance with the dictates of the law as it stands and not as our critics would like it to be.
Judgments are rendered in very simple English, lucidly expressed and presented in the most logical manner.
With this modest philosophy of life, I have been able to meticulously navigate through the foibles of life to reach where I am presently.
Now, the wife of the president, Mrs. Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, has emphasized the need for all relevant stakeholders to end female genital mutilation and cutting in Nigeria. Mrs. Buhari stated this in a message to the launch of a joint program by UNICEF and UNFPA in collaboration with the Nigerian government on the need to end the practice. State House correspondent Aliyu Kabiru reports that the wife of the vice president, Dolakbo Oshibajo, represented Mrs. Buhari.
The role of our development partners, the UN and other international organizations, including embassies of foreign nations in Nigeria, and their continued support in the campaign to end this harmful traditional practice is also crucial for success.
Nigeria accounts for approximately 16% of the estimated 125 million victims of female genital mutilation worldwide.
It directly violates both Article 3 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which says everyone has right to life.
This means that journalists must increase coverage of FGM/C and other development news in ways that facilitate the two-way communication.
The joint program focuses on sustained community engagement to change social perceptions and norms.
And finally, German President Joachim Gauck says migration to Europe will not solve Africa's developmental programs. The German president stated this when he visited ECOWAS headquarters in Abuja in company of his wife.
Our region can benefit from other experiences. In this regard, we know how Germany has tremendously contributed to the EU integration process. We also know which important role Germany has played in the recent adoption of the UN SDGs and the humanitarian assistance to refugees in Europe.
And that's the news. Good Morning Nigeria continues for right away with Claire and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you very much there, Rhoda Obo, for the news. Now it's time for us to take a short break. And when we return, it will be time for the business segment.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Does your antiseptic liquid kill the germs that cause flu, diarrhea, typhoid? Dettol does. Dettol provides 10 times more protection versus leading competition. Dettol is the #1 selling antiseptic liquid, proven to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs. So why take a risk with your loved ones?
Introducing the new Dettol 55-gram soap with the same germ protection and quality at a more affordable price. Buy the new Dettol 55-gram soap for 80 naira only. Keep your family protected from germs.
Helen! Would you like some water? It's cold, especially for you.
Which era are you living in? We have a fridge.
When everything else in your house is from the present, then why are your toilet cleaning methods from the past? Harpic, all-in-one for you. Compared to other toilet cleaners, Harpic removes top stains, kills all germs, and removes bad odors. For a shining clean and fresh toilet.
Wow.
You should also take the
Harpic all-in-one challenge.
All right, a little of business now. The Central Bank of Nigeria releases guidelines for the implementation of Treasury Single Account TSA by states. And the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System NIBSS data reveals that the highest number of fraudulent transactions in the banking sector takes place on, guess where? Automated teller machines, ATMs. Let's get the details from Shion Ogunloye.
Hello Nigerians, let's talk business again. Our state governments continue to face intense pressure on their cash flows in the face of dwindling revenues and the need to meet increasing statutory and social responsibilities. The Central Bank of Nigeria has released the guidelines for the implementation of Treasury Single Account TSA by states. The TSA, according to the CBN, would be a major component of financial and treasury management reforms being undertaken by the states. The news circular posted on the CBN's website explained that the central bank introduced the guidelines for the state in exercise of its powers as provided in the CBN Act 2007, Section 47, subsection 22D. The objective of these guidelines is to provide state governments with a clear framework to support their successful implementation of the TSA initiative based on standardized banking arrangements, operational processes and IT infrastructure. Part of the essential requirement for operating the TSA by state is that government agencies are not to operate any bank account under any guise outside the purview and oversight of the Treasury. In addition, the Central Bank explained that under the policy, the consolidation of government cash resources should be comprehensive and encompass all government cash resources, both budgetary and extra-budgetary. A total of 23,345,964 million bank customers had obtained their bank verification numbers, BVN, as at February 7, 2016. The Director of Banking and Payments Department, Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Mr. Dikpo Fatokun, at the forum revealed that over 28 million customers BVN out of existing 55 million customers in all banks in Nigeria had been linked to their respective accounts. According to Fatokun, the trainer session on installation of enrollment and verification devices at branches have been organized for bank staff. He expressed satisfaction that the BVN initiative had started yielding the desired effect. with the reported elimination of 23,000 ghost workers at the federal government's level. Furthermore, Fatokun stated that despite the state of the economy, 2015 witnessed an unprecedented upsurge in the volume and value of transactions across all payment channels in the industry compared to what was recorded in 2014. Finally, on the business package this morning, data from Nigeria Interbank Settlement System has revealed that the highest number of fraudulent transactions in the banking sector takes place on automated teller machines, ATM. According to NIBSS data, internet banking was responsible for 34% of electronic banking frauds. The NIBSS data also showed that 3% of electronic banking fraud took place on point of sales POS terminals, while e-commerce was responsible for 1% of electronic banking fraud and others 19%. The Nigeria Electronic Fraud Forum maiden report began with 2014 and captured views from over 10 deposit money banks on e-payment channels. Considering the surge in e-commerce and its potential to drive increased investment in Nigeria's economy, analysts hailed the recent release of an e-fraud report by the Nigerian Electronic Fraud Forum as a welcome development. And that's the package on the business news this time. It's nice talking business with you. The program continues very shortly. Just stay with us.
All right, thank you very much there for the business package. And now it's time for us to take a look at the headlines in today's newspapers. Bayo Atoyebe, the Good Morning Nigeria newspaper reviewer, is with us in the studios, and it's our pleasure to have him join us for today's edition. Bayo, morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kisili. Good morning. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Claire, we'll kick off with a review.
You've got more papers.
No, well, it's,
the more the merrier.
Let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust newspaper has as its lead story, with a kick-up, Senator and local officials say rescued residents starving in Borno, and it has a rider 58 killed in IDP camp blast. Details of that can be found on page 4. Rescued residents starving in Borno, 58 killed in IDP camp blast. But that same story about the latest attack on an IDP camp, it's also there on the front page of the Punch newspaper, and it's above the name flag. It says, suicide bomber kills 30 in Borno IDP camp. So Punch is reporting 30, and the Daily Trust is reporting 58. And for the Nation newspaper, just above its name flag, the Nation newspaper above its name flag is reporting 56. Says, female bombers kill 56 in IDP's camp, and 78 injured in attack on Dikwa. Details of that can be found on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. Another headline on the front page of Daily Trust, of course, says EFCC quizzes ex-Governor Sherman's aides and others. That's on page 5. And INEC to spend 10 billion naira on 80 rerun polls. Details on page 13.
Okay, front page of Vanguard leads with the story, why we can't probe ex-service chiefs. And quite a number of riders there. And you have a picture story of activists during the commemorative rally and wreath laying to mark late Dr. Beko Ransom Kuti's 10th memorial in Lagos. That was yesterday. Other stories trending on the front page. Dr. Irene Damola, 75, burned to death in fire incident. And there are savings from fuel subsidy removal rise to 647 million naira daily. There is another interesting story on the inside page. Unfortunately, we can't get that to you, but it's on page 16, bio of the same paper. And it says, Senate turns down budget proposal for information ministry. And just to read out a few portions, that the Senate Committee on Information, which took the decision during the ministry budget defense, insisted that the ministry must not only rework, but also represent its budget with provisions for effective media propaganda in the Northeast. He therefore appealed that the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, FRCN, News Agency of Nigeria, NAN, and Voice of Nigeria should go and add the required component.
Well, yes. In fact, there was also an objection raised about the provision for computers in some of it. The essence is to strengthen the information ministry. Well, oftentimes we take information for granted, and information is quite expensive. And unless we invest in information, sometimes even the insurgents might surpass us with their information strategy. You recall the extent to which they use the social media to their greatest advantage and to the detriment of our nation. But still talking about insurgency, Yobe state government says that Governor Ibrahim Gaidam says that as far as Yobe is concerned, it has been totally liberated from the insurgency. They are now working with security agents to ensure that the place is safe and for them to consider the return of internally displaced persons. Unfortunately, 2 female suicide bombers pretending to be displaced persons invaded an IDP camp and unfortunately killed misplaced persons. There are conflicting reports. In the paper is saying 92, but SEMA that has been there reports 30 dead, and other ones are also reporting 62. The range seems to be about 60. But this raises concern because when you have internally displaced person, the tendency is that you have to be very sure about who comes in. Otherwise, suicide bombers can infiltrate, and that is exactly what happened in Dikwa, and Dikwa is about 85 kilometers away from Maiduguri. Another related story about the army is that the Defense Director of Information says that soldiers are using equipment which are okay for them, and for now, they dispel the information that the equipment they have are substandard. They say for now, what they have can take them to where they are planning to go. They are also said that the hope of rescuing Chibok girls have not been dimmed. The army says that with what it has done and what it's set to do, they will rescue not only Chibok girls, but all people that have been in captive. There were also 250 soldiers who were protesting at the Nigerian Union of Journalists office in Kaduna yesterday. The army has explained that they are among the 2,023 soldiers that were reinstated. They were initially dismissed from the army. But these 250, since January 6, had absconded and they didn't report for duty. And therefore, they are deemed to have shown sense of gross indiscipline, recalcitrant to military discipline, cowardice, and absence without leave. There was also the story you read about INEC. About 10 billion is required for 80 reruns. Well, with the pronouncement about some of the state governments, some of the reruns have been taken off their radar. But for Anambra State, INEC has also announced that only candidates who were cleared and participated in the March 28, 2015 elections will contest the Anambra Central Senatorial rerun elections. They say that the new Resident Electoral Commissioner, Dr. Lawrence Azubuike, says that PDP will not take part, but is silent on the APC. However, Dr. Chris Ngige, who is the current Honorable Minister for Labour, has already indicated that he is serving Nigeria as a minister and will not be available. The APC has already nominated Sharon Ekazu as its candidate in that context.
All right, but let's move on to other stories. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, the lead story is EFCC seizes 5 billion naira houses of ex-NAF chief Amosu and others. NAF refers to the Nigerian Air Force. It has a right that commission quizzes 11 senior military officers and continues Bade's grilling. Bade is the immediate past chief of defense staff. You can see the composite photographs there of some of the houses allegedly belonging to the Air Force chiefs. The houses have been sealed off. Now, other headlines: MDAs spent 825 billion naira on travels, stationery, and others, and this attributed to the federal government. MDAs spent 825 billion naira on travels, stationery, and others. And Lagos Field missed January target for first oil. That's on page 29. And Buhari returns from 6-day vacation in London on page 7. And just above the name flag of the Punch newspaper, Aso Rock security agents grumble over unpaid allowances. That's to be found in greater detail on page 7. We already have read a story on the IDPs and the fatalities arising from the suicide bombing there. And Seriki files suit to stop Olubadan's installation. Details on page 7. Bayo.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let's quickly go to the story about the protest by students. There have been protests by student of Yaba College of Technology. A HND student was taken ill. She was taken to the hospital, the college clinic, was treated and was discharged. But she was reluctant to go because she wasn't feeling well. They had to rush her back at midnight, and unfortunately she died. So the students felt that she was not attended to properly. Also, their counterparts in the University of Lagos, particularly College of Medicine, have been stopped from all of them being accommodated on campus, and they also went on rampage demonstrating. 17 students of Afe Babalola University, Ado-Ekiti, who were involved in campus unrest last Sunday, has also been charged to court for possessing arms, firearms, and damage to government college property, as well as committing arson. The chief magistrate has asked them to be remanded in prison custody until their case is heard on Friday.
Okay. I have quite a number of stories, just a few of them coming from the Authority newspaper. On the front page, the lead story, Second Niger Bridge, Lagos-Ibadan roads, top federal government's priority projects. Comes with 2 riders to spend 31 billion naira on Oshodi-Akpakpa Road, others, and plans to make FEMA Nigeria's biggest construction firm. Now, just below that is a picture story, a cache of ammunition seized by the military authorities from the retreating Boko Haram insurgents yesterday. And 10 killed, 30 injured as soldiers invade the indigenous peoples of Biafra prayer session. But on the inside page, that's on page 8, 2 stories I like to point out. One is just at the bottom of page 8. Permanent Secretary faults police on alleged baby sale. It's an 7 permanent secretary in Bayelsa State has faulted the claims by police command in the state that he was arrested over alleged attempt to buy a newborn baby for the sum of 200,000 naira. Now we also have this one, duplicated allocations unmarked in NIMET's budget. Duplicated allocations unmarked in NIMET's budget. That's
all right. Just to deal with the economic story, on the front page of the Nation newspaper, above the nameplate of the Nation newspaper, Nigeria seeks $2 billion loan from China. Government needs cash to fund budget. That's the right after that. Also on the front page there, court remands 189 Shiites in prison, and fire at Kano Market.
Well, the loan to be taken is from the Chinese Exim Bank. It's part of the initiative to fund the deficit part of the 2016 budget that is meant to take care of the capital projects. But meanwhile, calm has returned to Imo State. Labour threatened to shut down Imo State yesterday by calling out workers on strike. However, negotiations prevailed, and Governor Rochas Okorocha has reinstated the 3,000 workers that were suspended from the 19 parastatals. Governor Okorocha says his action was for the overall interest of Imo people. There's also the issue about the judiciary, which has come to the fore. At a ceremony to bid farewell to retiring Justice Muntaka Seyfullah Kumasi, the CJN of Nigeria says that criticism by persons, particularly politicians, is based on ignorance of the operations of the judicial system. He says the judiciary strikes to redress wrong and then balance in favor of what is right. The principle of the Supreme Court is to correct the position of the law on issues, particularly that are emanating for the lower courts. And you also recollect that before now, there have been pronouncements about centered on card readers. There was a ruling in favor of Lagos, in favor of Kaduna, Zamfara, and Yobe. And they were all related to card readers. And the latest ruling on Rivers and Akwa Ibom are also related to card readers. In fact, the position of the Supreme Court will seem to confirm that card readers cannot be used for overvoting, which was the basis. And until the justices of the Supreme Court provide us details of their ruling on February 16th and 25th, we may not be able to know their true position. But it would be quite unfair to the respected justices of the Supreme Court, who by the position of their job cannot come out publicly to rebut, to be put on public purview and be criticized as is being done. I think our politicians need to exhibit a high sense of maturity, particularly that the same politician, for instance, Governor Siraki Dixon of Bayelsa State, was saying that the judiciary has now rescued the political class. Now you can't win governorship through the courts. You have to win through the polls by votes at the polls. So you have different strokes for different folks, depending upon who the judiciary favors. But we must respect the judiciary as an institution, like they always say, as the last hope of the ordinary man.
That's right. Bayo, thank you. Yeah, just before we call it today, just to draw your attention, there's a story here. You know, the world is suffering from a glut in the oil market, that's oversupply. Now, there's a story at page 23 of the Daily Trust newspaper. I'm sure we can see that on the screen. It says, tomato glut hits Katsina markets and farmers adopt sun-drying method. You can see there on the field where they are sun-drying their tomatoes. They say that as a result of the glut, that's oversupply, the price has dropped to 300 naira from 5,000 naira per big basket. And this is a huge loss to them. We do hope that those who are into tomato puree making can rush immediately to Katsina to pick up the produce. So, tomato glut hits Katsina markets. That's the last story we are taking on Good Morning Nigeria today. Bayo?
It's very sad because there is a technology which can be used to preserve those tomatoes for a very long time. And that will help preserve them and also save our farmers this loss that they are facing now.
In terms of income?
Yes.
All right. So, Bayo Atoyebe, thank you for being with us today. We'll see you again tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. All right, Claire. So let's go on to our principal item for discussion this morning. But that will be after this break.
We have always lived together as brothers and sisters. Though we speak different languages and celebrate different cultures, we were still one Nigeria. There was no bombing, there was no kidnapping, and our children were not cultists. Now, we suspect one another as there are spreads of cultism, bombing, and kidnapping. How long shall this go on? Terrorism is alien, kidnapping is criminal, cultism is barbaric. Nigeria is a blessed country. Support the Nigeria Police and the fight against terrorism, kidnapping and cultism. Always inform the police of any incident around you. Say something when you suspect something.
Remember, we all have a stake in building a crime-free Nigeria of our dream.
This message is from the Nigeria Police Force.
Why are you filming, Mommy?
To help people stop getting sick. People think it's the ever-changing weather during Harmattan that makes them sick. Actually, it's the germs. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs, including flu.
Dettol, endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Are you aware that the death percentage attributed to Lassa fever cases is currently put at 43.2%, a figure considered very high? Lassa fever, an acute viral illness characterized by high fever, muscle aches, mouth ulcers, and bleeding in the skin, is harbored by rats and spread to humans. via the urine and droppings of rats. To prevent Lassa fever, avoid any exposure with rodents, rats, as well as food and objects contaminated with rat secretions and excretions. Report all suspected cases of Lassa fever immediately to the nearest healthcare institution. Help prevent Lassa fever. This message is from the federal government of Nigeria.
All right, thank you for joining us again. We're starting off our conversation on our key subject for discussion this morning. That's cancer. Now, the depressing story of the abnormality of the human cell, that's again cancer, continues to ravage the world. Now, this is not without connection to the lifestyle, changing lifestyle, which is of course impacting on the environment and ultimately our health. A life-threatening ailment, cancer, according to the World Health Organization, claims about 8 million lives across the world. With these alarming statistics, it appears that prevention in the case of cancer is the only option. Omotola Mojola in this background tells us what to look out for and how to ensure that prevention is effective.
Also known as a malignant tumor, its symptoms are characterized by an abnormal cell growth in the body, occurring in over 100 forms in the human system. Causes of cancer from reports have been noted to be 90% environmental and 10% hereditary. This disease wreaks its havoc by spreading from its point of first growth to other parts of the body. Dr. Folusho Arewa, a consultant radiation and clinical oncologist and nuclear medicine physician, explains the common signs of cancer.
If you see a growth somewhere in your body that was not there before, you should be alarmed. Like your menstruation, a woman that is menstruating and now discover that no, I'm having blood, this intermenstrual bleeding is not normal, you should be alarmed. If you vomit blood and you are vomiting blood and things like that, it's something for you to be worried about. And you've discovered that no, this is my stream of urine. It's not the way it's supposed to be. Like before, I'm not having the stream is not as good as it's supposed to be. Then you'll be alarmed. It can be a sign of prostate cancer.
Various researches have shown that breast cancer is the most common case of cancer in women, contributing about 25% of all cases. According to the World Health Organization, breast cancer has been named the #1 scourge afflicting human beings. 1 in 8 women is at risk of breast cancer in a lifetime, and mortality rate is highest in developing countries. Next to breast cancer for women is cervical cancer. While breast cancer ravages among the female folks, it is prostate cancer among male, accounting for about 50,000 new cases in Nigeria. These ailments are claiming a lot of lives and still afflicting many more. But the question is, why is accessing cancer treatment a challenge for patients in Nigeria?
The treatment are available. Are they accessible? Those people that are rich can access them. But are they enough? Are they adequate? The answer there is no, they're not adequate.
Quite depressing is the ratio of facilities available to the Nigerian population. Dr. Arewa says subsidizing health is a way to go.
The number of patients are there. Patients are there for sure. Then if you're not sure that I'm going to get my money, bank will give you loan for you to set up private cancer centers. Then the only way you can get it is that if government is paying subsidizing for health.
Thank you very much, Omotola Mojola, for that background report, of course, which included interviews with specialists in this field. But we have a number of guests, both in the Abuja studios and at remote locations, to discuss extensively this subject matter, namely dealing with cervical and prostate cancers. First, at this time, we'd like to welcome Dr. Bello Abubakar Mohammed. He's a consultant clinical oncologist and immediate past head of Department of Oncology and Radiotherapy at the National Hospital in Abuja. Dr. Bello, it's our pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay. And then we also have with us Dr. Jerome Oswide. Is a consultant urologist, and of course he practiced in the north for so many years and was amongst the first to carry out what is called a transuteral prostatectomy. He would give us details of that if it's necessary in the course of this conversation. And that took place well over 30 years ago at the Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital, now in private practice here in Abuja. Dr. Swede, it's our pleasure that you join us this morning.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you.
Such words, not just the cancer, not just the letter C. You know, when you hear such big names, they send shivers down the spine of the patients. But sure. Joining us from our Bini Network studio is Professor Moses Momo. Professor Moses is Professor Momo, I beg your pardon, is a surgery, breast and sorry, I'd just like to get that correct. He's Professor of Surgery, Breast and Endocrine Division, Department of Surgery, University of Benin Teaching Hospital. He's also Dean, Faculty of Medicine, University of Benin. Thank you very much, Professor Momo, for joining us.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Of course, he's also a former Commissioner of Health, Edo State. And from our JOS Network studio, we would like to welcome Dr. Ayuba Madaki Dauda, and he's a consultant histopathologist. That's another one. JOS University Teaching Hospital. Thank you very much for joining us from JOS.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Medical terms. Some of those medical terms. Some of them they sound very interesting. They're very sweet. They represent. They sound very sweet. I mean, when you hear cerebrospinal meningitis, it's a very sweet name, but a very deadly ailment. But that's not what we're discussing today. Let's begin with Dr. Bello, and let's establish this: cancer, breast cancer, or prostate cancer. Is it a poor man's ailment or a rich man's ailment? It's an ailment that can afflict anybody.
Well, thank you very much. Cancer, basically, it's not a disease of anybody. It's just a human disease. So breast cancer has so many risk factors, one of which is being a woman. That is the most important risk factor of developing breast cancer. So it's not a disease of the rich or a disease of the poor. But basically, it's a disease that can afflict anybody. And it's not like the disease is caused by spiritual or demons or what have you. You're just a human being. And then you can have what we call mutations, because we now know that basically most cancers, like breast cancer and prostate cancer, are genetic diseases. So in other words, there is a gene mutation, something happens and there's aberration. Somebody asked me, what is cancer basically? And the simple word to answer that is abnormal cells, immortal cells. That's what are cancers. We tend to, your cells, your normal cells grow and die normally over a specific period of time. Now, when cells refuse to die for one reason or the other, they become immortal, and that is what is called cancer, basically. So breast cancer, prostate cancer are simply diseases of the human. But again, there are so many other considerations. You don't expect a 5-year-old girl to develop breast cancer. So these are diseases that develop with age. So risk factor is also age. The older you get, the more likely for you to develop breast cancer or even prostate cancer. And you also look at other things like inheritance, family history. Breast cancer as well as prostate cancer tend to develop in patients that have had a parent or a sibling that has developed cancer. And we found that there is a hereditary gene in most of them. Like in breast cancer, you tend to have what is called the BRCA gene. If someone has inherited that gene, the likelihood of developing breast cancer is 60 times more than the average. So if you have risk factors, chances are that you will develop that cancer earlier, you will develop it more aggressive, and so on and so forth, which we'll discuss as we go along.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bello. Dr. Sude, most of these terminal diseases, last time we talked about cardiovascular diseases, they have always been linked. The prevalence and steady rise have always been linked to medium and low income developing countries like Nigeria. We'd like to know, does it have anything to do with poverty level, cost of obtaining, Medicare and all that? With the case of cancer.
With the case of cancer as it relates to the prostate, it's not really a class issue. Rather, as he has said, as Dr. Bello has said, there are various factors involved, racial, genetic, and lifestyle, and so many things have been incriminated, but nobody really can tell you definitely that this is the cause of cancer. Recently, as he said, we've traced some genes, particular genes, BRCA1, BRCA2, as he has said, to development of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and now linked to prostatic cancer. That if you find a BRCA2 gene in anybody who has inherited that, is more likely to develop prostate cancer faster and more aggressive type, because you have this, it's usually a slow-growing cancer, prostate cancer, when it arises from the glandular part of the prostate. Now, this is an illustration of a patient with prostate cancer. Yes, help me hold this, please. You like to see the difference between what you have here in a normal prostate gland. It's tucked away there. This is the bladder. The prostate is tucked away in the at the neck of the bladder, and the urethra, the male urethra, has to pass through the center like that, so that when your bladder is full and it contracts, the pressure, the bladder neck immediately opens. It's a synchronous something. Once the bladder contracts, bladder neck automatically opens, urine flows through and out that way. Now, when there's development of cancer in a patient, you can see these multiple nodular areas, very prominent. And because of the obstruction and the fact that the bladder has to work very hard, nature always provides a compensatory mechanism. And therefore, you see that the bladder wall is thickened, very thickened. And you can see even the muscle bundle fibers. This we call trabeculation. We don't want to bother you with big terminology. So this shows, when we do endoscopy and we see this, it shows that this bladder has been overworking to try and overcome an obstruction. In this case, you see the obstruction there distally. So then other factors that have been incriminated, like chronic prostatic disease. Certain people have talked about schistosomiasis in our own environment here, but that is more related to bladder cancer than prostate cancer. Lifestyle. If people who eat Mediterranean diet, high vegetable, fruits, and low red meat diet are less likely, it's said, to develop prostate cancer. So if you're in the habit of eating suya, dambo nama, and the rest, you just scale down a bit and eat more of fruits and vegetables, high doses of vitamin C, and green tea is thought to help. Selenium element in your diet, all those are thought to help, and various preparations of antioxidants that take care of free radicals.
All right. I was wondering, Dr. Oswide, we'll come back to you to deal with preventive measures. You've already touched on some of them. I'm sure the other professionals will have something to say. I just wanted us to further explore what has been established. That, okay, Dr. Bello has said and amplified by Dr. Oswide that, look, this is a human affliction. Cancer, you have cancer because you're a human being. But this question now is going to Professor Moses Momo at our Benin Network Center. Is it just the case of awareness now, increased awareness that has enabled us to see the wider scale of the incidence of various forms of cancers? And we are focusing on only two this morning, cervical as well as, cervical and breast as well as prostate cancer. Do we have, let's say, in medical history, an account of how cancer had always dealt with the human race?
A very interesting question. First, the first part of, you are correct that increased awareness is part of the reason that we are seeing many more cases. Many more cases are showing up in the hospitals, and we're able to diagnose them. But the other factors is that many of the things that the risk factors are also responsible for why we are seeing many more cases. As Dr. Bello was saying, if you go through the risk factors, you will see why we are having many more cases. Being female predisposes to having breast cancer. The older the woman gets, the higher the risk of breast cancer. The family history, once the mother, if there's a female in the family, mother, auntie who has had breast cancer, that puts the other females in that family at a higher risk of having breast cancer. Now, then you have the age at which a woman sees the period for the first time and the age at which she sees it, which is called menarche and menopause. The earlier a girl sees a first period and the latter, the menopause, the higher the risk of having breast cancer. And we know these days our daughters are seeing their periods at a very early age, maybe about 10 years, sometimes 9 years, as against the age at which our mothers saw their periods, which was about 15, 16, 17. So there is a long period of exposure to the female hormone called estrogen. So you have an added risk where people are having breast cancer. Then another risk factor which is predisposing to more cases of breast cancer is the age at which women have their first live baby. Usually the best reproductive age is between the ages of 18 and 25. But because of pursuit of higher education and career, you now see women having their first child after the age of 35. Women that have their children after the age of 35 are at a higher risk of having breast cancer. The other risk factors are the use of oral contraceptive pills. They predispose to higher breast cancer. In those days, women that have large families, a number of children, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, tend to protect against breast cancer. But these days, families are smaller. We have 1 or 2 children. Then breastfeeding also is a factor. The more women breastfed, the more they were protected against breast cancer. But until recently, breastfeeding was not in vogue until about 10 years when the breastfeeding initiative was adopted worldwide and then nationwide, and we returned to natural breastfeeding. Then you also have factors like obesity, cigarette smoking. All these have added to increase the incidence of breast cancer worldwide and in Nigeria. And as has been said from the statistics, it's the most common cancer affecting women worldwide and in Nigeria. And 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer in their lifetime. So this is a combination of factors that has made it made the incidence to be very common, but the increased awareness is there. But this awareness is not also total, because you will find that later, if the opportunity comes, that most of the cases that come to us, 80% come at a late stage. They come at a late stage. And when they come at a late stage, it's not curable. It is important to point out that breast cancer is curable if it comes early. If the patient comes when lump in the breast is the size of a bean seed or a rice grain or even a cube of sugar or even the size of a walnut, that patient can still be cured. But once they come at the stage at which the lump in the breast is as big as my fist, or there is a sore on the breast, as you showed in some of the photographs earlier, then it becomes extremely difficult to cure the disease.
Professor Mamo, let's understand what exactly is happening. We know that these days girls, begin their menstrual cycle at the age of 12. At what age would you consider will be early? That's one. And then secondly, what exactly is happening within the bodies of women at the ages, that predisposes them to, getting cancer?
Well, you are right. The average age at which they see their period now is 12 years. But there are some girls from certain, especially from the higher social class, because of rapid development, they see their periods at a younger age, 9, 10, and 11. We did a study in Benin, in different secondary schools, in fact, the entire state of Edo State, and it showed clearly that while the average was 12 years, those from the higher social class started to see their period at a younger age. Now, it's also across the entire communities. The age and the whole world, the age at which women see their period has reduced by 1 year every decade since 1960. So in communities where women saw their periods at the age of 16 in 1960, it reduced by 1 year for each decade. And by now, they are now seeing their period at the age of 11. The same community, no migration, just a feature of better living, better nutrition is reducing the age of maturing and seeing the periods. And as I said, that exposes the woman's body to a longer period of that female hormone called estrogen, which is responsible for majority of the risk factors for breast cancer. Now, the importance of pregnancy is that each time you are pregnant and breastfeeding, the level of estrogen reduces. So if in a 30-year period you saw your period, you had 5 children, that will remove about 10 years from that 20 years of estrogen exposure. So that tends to protect against breast cancer. So nothing, and as Dr. Bello pointed out earlier, there are certain genes that are in women that tend to make it to be familiar. And what is important is that if a member of that family has breast cancer, we are now able to, Dr. Bello and his colleagues are now able to identify that gene and see if it is that same gene is present in the daughters. Because if it is present, it increases their risk of having breast cancer. What therefore that means is that those daughters will have to be more circumspect. They have to examine themselves more frequently, what they call breast self-examination and clinical breast examination, and then, of course, using mammography and ultrasound to monitor and follow up, and so that if there is going to be cancer, it will be detected early and it will be cured. I'm sure many people have heard the story of Angelina Jolie, the superstar model, whose mother had ovarian cancer and auntie had breast cancer. She went ahead and did the studies and found that she also had the gene, and they calculated the risk for her. She had 86% chance of going to have breast cancer, and she voluntarily walked into the hospital and had a double mastectomy without any complaints. As I said earlier, most of our patients here present.
Professor Momo, well, thank you very much. I mean, you've elaborated on some key points. And just by way of illustration, Claire, and I'm sure the medical experts here will also remember this. Growing up, in those days, you used to see, women, were old and much older, grandmoms, and barely, strapping their breasts, and they went about, their business. Again, the fact of having breastfed for a very long time and so on and so forth may have contributed. But let's take the other leg now, which is the prostrate. This question goes to Dr. Ayuba Dauda at the University of Jos University Teaching Hospital. Dr. Dauda, you've listened to the other guests. For prostate cancer, what, in your opinion, are the high-risk factors? And by the way, take along this view. I mean, it's been expressed sometimes by some observers that, when you have, again, accumulation of sperm, and then you could develop prostate cancer. Is that true?
Well, thank you very much. Prostate cancer actually is one of the most common cancer in men. In this environment, it has been noted that it's even one of the most common cause of mortality, deaths associated with cancer in men. Well, for the risk factor in prostate, we need to look at modifiable risk factors and those factors that are non-modifiable. There are certain factors which was mentioned earlier by my colleague in the Abuja zone. Age, that is, the age plays a very significant role as per increased risks associated or linked with prostate cancer. By the time one gets older, his chances of developing prostate cancer increases. And that is not a modifiable. You can't modify age. The age is there. So we are looking at 40 years old, the percentage of individuals that comes with prostate cancer at that age is quite minimal as compared to when the individual is older. At the age of 50, 60, 70, you begin to see increased incidence of prostate cancer. Aside from age, we also want to look at some certain things like genetics. Genetics plays a role in prostate. Just like we mentioned, generally a genetic factor is associated with cancer, virtually all cancers. Well, also, it is also nice to understand that this prostate cancer also increases as a result of our diet. Those ones are modifiable for the diet. You can't modify the diet, especially those who are involved in taking high-fat diet. For high-fat diet, it has been associated that high-fat diet is linked to prostate cancer. And also animal fats with the red meat. All those things are modifiable. They are also associated with prostate cancer. Generally, the prostate of a man begins to wear off as the individual gets older. You see, it increases in size. There is a benign condition known as the benign prostatic hypertrophy. Those are also benign conditions that are associated with those risk factors that I mentioned, old age as a risk factor. So generally, if you look at prostate cancer and breast cancer, they are cousins. The same risk factor you find in breast cancer is also the same risk factor you are likely to encounter in individuals who have prostate cancer. For prostate cancer also, the risks of, or the incidence generally of prostate cancer appears to be increasing. The reason for that is because most of the people have now been able to assess a particular investigations we call the PSA. Due to a lot of awareness now about the PSA, people go early to assay their level of PSA. It is expected that the level of PSA is quite low in an individual that is less than 40 years. But when you begin to age, the level of that hormone increases. There's a particular significant level of the hormone. When it gets higher, you now begin to suspect that this individual is likely to have prostate cancer. For one to establish the diagnosis of prostate cancer, one will also augment such investigation by taking a biopsy. You may want to rule out the possibility of a benign prostatic hypertrophy or an adenocarcinoma that could be linked to the increased level of this particular hormone we are talking about. Well, there are a few speculations here and there that has nothing to do with scientific basis, where people say if you have increased level of sperm, you tend to have a high chances of developing prostate cancer. That has not been documented. But however, the level of male hormone, the androgen, tend to increase in the system. So this level of this hormone that increases in the system have an anabolic effect on the prostate. When I say anabolic effect, means the increased proliferative activities within the prostate gland. And these are the hormones that have been linked to prostate cancer generally. So prostate cancer, as we have said, is a disease of the elderly, and is one of those diseases that is more like a rapid killer in men in our environment generally.
Yes, Dr. Dauda, thank you for your response to Kingsley's question. But we have some tweets, and one of those tweets is actually, again, requesting an answer for the same question Kingsley asked. And this is a tweet coming in from Sefine Heights. He tweets, being sexually active, can it help in reducing the risk of prostate cancer? Does massaging help to reduce the risk of breast cancer? Let's speak to the issue of being sexually active. Indeed, I've heard, even some medical experts do prescribe that, to the men. I don't know. Dr. Dauda.
Yes, well, for everything, you need to have a scientific basis for trying to come up and say, yes, being sexually active. But from the little knowledge I have, being sexually active is all about, well, ejaculation, the presence of sperm. You are ejaculating the sperm, and you are putting the prostate into a sort of activity. I have not encountered where a research has been carried out and it has been conclusively mentioned that if you are sexually active, it will reduce your risk of developing prostate cancer. But however, there are speculations here and there. This is subject to extensive research, which of course one will have to look at that before you can comfortably come out and say being sexually active can reduce your risk of having prostate cancer generally. But there are speculations here and there about that. It has been mentioned, just like it has been mentioned that if you palpate the breasts of a woman, there are a lot of speculations here, a lot of information that circulate here, that if you consistently palpate the breast of a woman, her chances of developing breast cancer is also drastically reduced. We actually work more on scientific evidence on some of those things. But just like I said, those modifiable risk factors, like the diet that we mentioned, if you are not involved in taking high vegetable diets rather than high fat diet, your chances of developing these diseases is quite limited, unlike what we have in this environment where our focus more is on high carbohydrate diets, fat diet, and all those things have been implicated.
Dr. Dauda, thank you very much. Let's get back to Abuja where Dr. Sude is. Dr. Sude, what's your response to that?
Well, in all my experience, over 30 years, I have not found a relationship between sexual activity as per sexual activity on its own and the incidence of prostate cancer. However, you know that the more sexually active you are, the more you expose yourself to sexually transmitted diseases. And STDs and chronic prostatitis have been implicated as possible disposing the patient to having a cancer of the prostate. I tell you, in those days, when prostatitis was not well known or elucidated, they used to say if you have gonorrhea, they give you togamycin, one injection clears it. But it didn't. And a lot of young men in our society also engaged in self-medication. When they are so sexually active, before they go and meet a woman here, they take 2 capsules of terramycin, and when they finish, they take another 2 capsules. That masks the early symptoms. And that infection that is contacted is never going to be treated completely. It needs 2 weeks of antibiotics to clear it. So it's not cleared. So the bacteria goes, there's no more discharge, but it goes right into the prostate. In my practice now, I find that over 70% of the patients I see, men, of course I only look after men, have chronic prostatitis. These are people who have history, 20 years history, 30 years history of sexually transmitted disease that was never completely treated. So not the sexual activity per se, but the fallout from it. The
recklessness.
Yeah, the recklessness. And for students in those days, you don't have money to go and take full treatment for your this thing. So you just take half and half treatment. Maybe you get 1 injection this week. Maybe before you get money again, it's another 5 days, you go and take another injection.
What is chronic prostatitis? That's, I'm sure, related to the prostate.
Chronic prostatitis is chronic inflammation in the prostate gland.
If you just demonstrate it again with the illustration that you brought up earlier. Yes.
You see, when you have, in the early stages of gonorrhea, for example, it is a urethritis. When you meet a woman and you contact the disease, there are glands in the urethra. Those glands get infected, and when they secrete pussy material, so you have a urethral discharge, whitish. Sometimes it turns yellowish. The prostate itself is also an exocrine gland. In other words, it produces a secretion to go out of the body. So when you take, when you start treatment, the first thing that clears is the urethral aspect of the infection. But when you have not completed the treatment, the bacteria sort of goes into the prostate and can lie quiescent for 20 years, 30 years. But the problem about chronic prostatitis is that when you now do all investigations, you hardly grow anything in less than 5% of the patients. In fact, chronic prostatitis is a global problem for all urologists now.
What's the fatality rate?
The
fatality rate?
No, it has got no fatality rate. It just causes other problems. It's a whole thing we could take 2 hours on prostatitis.
Yeah, it's a combination of
yes.
elements. Yeah, let Dr. Bello. Dr. Bello has been itching to say something, probably buttress or disagreement with what the other colleagues have said.
But if I have just mentioned very quickly that with the sophistication of our society, you find that young people, they are in the pub houses, smoking, and with the ladies, and then that leads to something else at the end of the night.
Or something, yes.
And smoking is also something that predisposes to cancer of the prostate.
Of the prostate, smoking?
Yes. Smoking, yes.
Not just lung cancer?
No.
I see. Okay, Dr. Bello, yes, you've been itching to say something. Let's just deal with this aspect of sexual activity and as a factor, together with what somebody described in the tweet as massaging, whether it can help deal with breast cancer.
Well, I think my colleagues have basically said it all, but let me quickly hasten to say that we do know that the prostate cancer, just like breast cancer, are basically hormonal diseases. In other words, they are linked to a particular hormone. Prostate cancer, high level of testosterone tend to actually kind of make the disease to be more aggressive and so on and so forth. So, and studies have shown that black people particularly tend to have a very high level of testosterone. And as a result of that, our prostate cancer tend to be earlier than in Caucasians. If the average of developing prostate cancer in Caucasians is 6 to 7 years, in Africans and African Americans, studies have shown that it is 10 years early, a decade earlier than the other people.
The Caucasians.
Yes, and also as compared with the Asians as well. So, and the link in most instances has been shown to be as a result of the level of testosterone. And that is when, that is why when we are doing treatment, one of the mainstay of treatment of prostate cancer is basically to lower the level of testosterone. Again, when you talk of the breast cancer, Professor Momo has earlier alluded to that unchallenged exposure to estrogen also predisposes to the disease. And when you have a estrogen responsive disease, one of the things that you do is you give drugs that will actually lower or challenge the level of estrogen. So basically hormonal diseases, and that probably may explain why some people think that yes, your level of sexual activity may be a plus, but we need to have a lot of randomization, clinical trials and studies to establish that. There is no evidence to suggest that not having sex actually will actually increase your level or otherwise.
Yes,
developing prostate cancer.
There have been some studies, though, that patients who've had a vasectomy tend to be predisposed to prostate cancer.
Yeah, for the benefit of our viewers, what is vasectomy? Of course, you know that.
Sorry, vasectomy is an operation you do. Instead of sterilizing the woman, you sterilize the man. In sophisticated societies, you will find a couple just get married and they say, we don't want to have children. And it is the man that offers to go for vasectomy. So we tie his vas deferens. So there's no way, you block the tubes. There's no way for the sperms to pass, so to go into the woman. So when he ejaculates, it's a dry ejaculation.
Well, I don't know. Well, that's fine. That's Professor Oswide. We'll come back to some of those details. I just wanted to add this joke. Perhaps again we have to go back into history to find out what happened to some of those palace guards, particularly the men who took charge of the harem of a king. They were said to have been sterilized. They have undergone vasectomy. Did they then develop prostate cancer? But anyhow, but yeah, let's get to, before we get to Benin, by the way, of course, you can always see our Twitter handle on the screen. I cleared out one of the tweets earlier. A number of the tweets have come in, and incidentally, the guests have spoken to some of the questions or the issues that you have raised in the tweets. But I would like to thank you. Keep sending in the tweets. We have them here. We're clear. Yes. You know, I see one here, Elias Nuhu, says, can cancer be treated permanently? Can it be cured? That's the question. And if no, what are medical practitioners doing to find a cure? So that's from Elias Nuhu, now talking about treatment. And then another one here from Julius. How can the problem of breast cancer be stopped? If you're a human being, it cannot be stopped, by the way. Dr. Bello says that.
All right, I have another one from Mwazu Elaze, and he says, I did not hear the aspect of breastfeeding. So apparently he wants to know what's the link between breastfeeding and cancer. Does breastfeeding help to prevent cancer? That's
Professor Momo actually
mentioned it. Professor Momo.
Yes.
Yes, I know this is directed to you.
Yes.
And this other one again from Akin Ola Akinfenwa says, can cancer cells not bud off into breast milk and get ingested by babies being breastfed and infect them? No. Professor Momo, those are questions for you. And mine is this. You talked about what did you call it? Mastectomy earlier on. That's cutting off of the breast. Some people have said, look, there are periods that you don't have to cut off the two breasts, but what you do, you enhance them. So what does enhancement mean, you know, as a prevention, cancer prevention treatment?
Well, let me take them in the order. This last one, enhancement of breast, especially when you use prosthesis, that is an artificial material to enhance breast, they tend to increase the risk of breast cancer. If you follow the news, sometime ago, about 2 years ago, between France and Britain, there were some prostheses that were procured, and the breasts were reacting to them, and they were getting thrown out. And they actually sued the company that made the prosthesis. It is an additional risk for breast cancer. Now, the first question, whether breast cancer can be cured. Yes, it can be cured. It can be cured. We have many patients who have been cured. When detected early, there are 4 stages at which it presents. The first 2 stages can be cured. When the lump in the breast, the cancer that is in the breast is about the size of a cube of sugar or about the size of a walnut, we can take out that segment of the breast, what you call a quadrantectomy. You take out a quadrant of that breast. You don't even need to remove the entire breast. When you do that and you follow through with the treatment with chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and hormone therapy, change the hormonal environment, as Dr. Bello had said earlier, we will cure these patients. So let everybody know that breast cancer can be cured, but they have to come early. But when they come late, with the cancer in the breast as big as my fist, or there is a sore, in fact, there are some pictures, I don't know if we can focus on them. When they come that late, then that is the stage at which they cannot be cured. The question of breastfeeding. Breastfeeding protects against breast cancer. Breastfeeding protects against breast cancer. So the more the children a woman has, and if she breastfeeds all of them for 18 months to 2 years, she tends to be protected against breast cancer. First is because you have put the breast to its proper use. 2 is that the period of breastfeeding lowers the estrogen hormone, which you have heard is at the bottom of all the risk factors. That estrogen hormone, the hormone that predisposes women to breast cancer, it lowers it during the period of breastfeeding and pregnancy. So that's why breastfeeding protects against breast cancer. Now, massaging of the breast, if done systematically, what we call palpation, can lead to early detection of a lump in the breast, or it may even express a discharge from the breast when the woman is not lactating. That is, if you massage a woman's breast and the woman is not breastfeeding and fluid comes out of a nipple, you should see a doctor. If blood comes out of a nipple while you are massaging, you should see a doctor. If while massaging, you feel a lump in the breast, you should see a doctor. To that extent, massaging of the breast will lead to early detection. And as I have said, early detection will lead to cure of breast cancer. I think those are basically the questions from tweets. Any other one?
All right, Professor Momo. Professor Momo, thank you very much for this perspective. I mean, we have a broad range of classes of persons watching this program at this stage. Somebody can just fly with, the idea of massaging. You know what Professor Nade was saying on Good Morning Nigeria, if you massage. So what is it? What is there a professional way of massaging, or is it just, the normal lovey-dovey stuff?
No, not the lovey-dovey stuff. There is a systematic manner in which the breast is examined, and we ask all women to do that. Basically, we advise that every woman should have a mirror in the bathroom, and at least once a week, stand in front of that mirror before you have your bath, look at your breast, look at the 2 breasts, and be familiar with the contour of the breast, the size of the breast, the levels of the nipple, the direction of the nipples, and then you put your hand in your waist, look at the breast again, put your hands behind you, look at the breast again, and then with one hand, with the right hand, you palpate the right breast, the left breast, with the flat of your hand in the quadrant by quadrant. You divide the breast into 4 and use the flat against the chest wall. You don't use the tip of your fingers, because if you do that, you will feel the milk ducts, where milk is stored. But if you use the flat, you will find that you will not feel any seed in the breast. You will not feel any seed in the breast. If you do that and you feel any lump in the breast, then it is significant. You need to go and see a doctor or a surgeon when you do that. That is the systematic manner of palpating the breast. The romantic massaging or massaging to reduce weight or enhance breast is not what is recommended. But as I said, it can, in the event of doing that, it may lead to some of the features of breast cancer being detected. Either a lump is detected, or bloody discharge comes out, or a clear discharge comes out when the patient, when the woman is not lactating.
Claire,
yes, I was trying to.
That's not for you to demonstrate in the studio, Claire. I mean, after the studio, because there's no mirror in front of you. I believe so. All right. Anyhow, Professor Momo, thank you very much for the illustration and the remarks. We have a number of tweets, as we said, that have come in. We have a new set, Claire. You'd like to read them. Ogo YJ had triple tweets, by the way, on this. He has many aspects. He's saying, do we have a world-class cancer center in Nigeria? And if not, what are we doing to establish one?
Okay, and Ogo Uwaja again tweets, we understand that there are moves in the West to use nanorobots to treat cancer. How far has that research gone? And again, he said, is it really possible to use stem cells to prevent or cure cancer? And is stem cell research morally acceptable in the medical field?
Okay, I think that we'd like to go back to our Just Network Center where Dr. Dauda is. Dr. Dauda, you'd like to respond to some of these questions that have been asked. Now we're going to the treatment aspect. Professor Momo says, yes, breast cancer is curable if detected early. Early detection, of course, Claire, it's always been the advice. Is prostate cancer curable, in addition to the other questions that have been asked in the tweets?
Well, generally, cancers, if detected early, they are actually curable. And the focus for early detection is all about screening. When you screen early and you're able to detect the presence of increased level of prostatic-specific antigen, which is the hormone that usually gets, released into the blood in an individual who have prostate cancer. If that is detected, there is a room for that individual to see the urologist. So the urologist, there is this hormonal treatment that is presently in place to now see how far one can go as per blocking the receptors. That is the hormonal receptor. We're talking about testosterone in these instances now for prostate cancer. There are situations also that if you go ahead and take a biopsy and discover that the individual have nodular hyperplasia, this nodular hyperplasia, if left for a prolonged period of time, there are chances that they may eventually progress into an adenocarcinoma or an invasive lesion from a pin lesion, which is a prostatic intraepithelial neoplasia, when that can eventually graduate into a full-blown cancer. But if you detect using the biopsy, true cut biopsy or whatever form of biopsy of the prostate, those kind of lesions are treatable. And then in some instances, prostatectomy can also be done before one eventually develops the full-blown disease. When you talk about chemotherapy for some of those diseases usually when we talk about complete cure, there is a kind of life survival of about, let's say, 5 years using chemotherapy. One cannot be sure if it's going to live up to tomorrow. So you can benefit from the chemotherapy at an early detection. We also have room for radiotherapy, of course, which the oncologists will even emphasize more on that. Then the issue of removal of the testes, because these are the particular organ where this hormone is being released. So some of those things, to some certain extent, the individual can achieve cure for a particular period of time. But early detection, well, beautiful. You can achieve wonderful cure and when some of these hormones are manipulated. So generally, cure can be achieved. Although in our society, most of our patients, they come in an advanced stage where these diseases are incurable. So what we do is more like palliative measures. You try to see how you will replace whatever that is not available in the system. If there is anemia, you take care of anemia. If the person is running out of electrolyte, you see how you can replace that. And you continue that kind of management until when eventually the person is going to die. So.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dauda. Dr. Bello, good news, these things can be cured. And we're talking about the ways, by which we can get that done. You are the oncologist here. Removal of the testes, is this still done?
Not exactly. Like he mentioned that most of our patients present very late. In fact, about 86% of cancer patients in this country present in third and late fourth stage. So the management options are many. You have gamut of treatments. But before I answer that, let me quickly answer that tweet. Do we have a world-class cancer center or treatment option in this country? And the answer is no. We don't have. We don't have. In fact, we are not even near the world-class facilities. Let me give you the statistics. The World Health Organization has recommended that Nigeria should have, for a population of 170, would have 145 radiotherapy machines. We currently have 7.
In the entire federation?
In the entire federation. And as I'm talking to you now, only 2 are functional.
Where are they?
One is in Zaria, and they are on strike, and one is in Sokoto. All the others are down, including the one at the National Hospital.
Yeah, that was overwhelmed sometime.
Yes, because it's an obsolete machine. That machine's lifespan is 7 years. It has worked for 16 years. The National Hospital has been trying to build a world-class cancer center with best state-of-the-art facilities, but funding has been such a big problem.
What is the average cost of any of these machines?
Well, the machine is about $1 million to buy, and of course including maintenance and so on and so forth. But this country can actually afford these machines because they just don't die overnight. And the idea that only government should provide these things should actually stop. If you go to the United States, if you go to United Kingdom, most of the best cancer centers are not funded by the government. It's by private enterprise. So people should come up with the best of cancer centers, not government, because government can't do it alone. We don't invest in this country in healthcare delivery. And I want to assure Nigerians that it's such a profitable thing to do. Because a lot of Nigerians travel to India. If you go to the Indian embassy, you will see that at least 10 people every day leave this country to go and access care. And most of them are cancer patients. So we have done a small study, and we found out that about $200 to $300 million leave this country every 3 months for cancer care. Now, if we can invest that kind of money here, people will not have to run to India, to Egypt, and all over the world. There is no country outside this country, outside Africa, that you don't see Nigerians going to access care. And you'll be so shocked that people run to Dubai, this small, tiny Dubai, to access care for cancer. Why? What is happening here?
Well, what does it take? What does it take, Dr. Bello, to get into, let's say, public-private partnership or even a purely private enterprise in establishing tertiary facilities, such as for cancer care and treatment?
Actually, I was told that the Federal Ministry of Health is ready to go into partnership with whoever that wants to establish a cancer center in this country. But the problem is that people are not coming up to do these things. Is it lack of awareness, or is it that they feel that it's not profitable, and so on and so forth? But quickly, we must start doing, because the treatment is not just about giving chemotherapy drugs, it's not about only radiation. You have to have manpower. If we don't develop the manpower in this country, then other people will come and be doing this treatment for us. Let me give you an instance. In this country, there are less than 40 clinical oncologists that are trained by the National Postgraduate Medical College in the last 40 years.
Why is it so difficult to train a clinical oncologist?
Well, a lot of people are not the doctors are not interested, because hitherto is assumed, like you mentioned, that terminal illnesses. But cancer is not really terminal illness if detected early. So a lot of people are not interested. There is no government incentive to train people to do cancer,
to specialize
in
in
oncology and so on. Because it's not just clinical oncology. You need medical physicists, you need dosimetrists, and so on and so forth. We don't have all these things in this country, as it were.
Okay, Dr.
So
Dada,
we have to start training.
Yes, we'll just pause you a while. We have quite a number of tweets we would like to take, and then some of them will require answers. I have Akin again, Ola Akinfenwa. He wants Professor Momo to really answer this question. He said it wasn't answered. Can cancer cells not bud off into breast milk and get ingested by babies being breastfed and potentially infect them? Akin Ola Akifenwa wants that. And Mbachuk's tweets, can abortion by young girls increase their chances of having breast cancer? Professor Momo?
Yeah, thank you very much. First question, it is not true. It's not possible for babies to get infected with cancer by sucking the breasts of a woman who has cancer. Usually, if a woman has cancer of the breast and we take out the cancer or take out the breast, it means the baby cannot suck that breast. We usually will use the other breast, even before the surgery. So there's really no risk of the baby having cancer. It's not passed through breast milk. The second question, very interesting. When we teach students, we have about 12 risk factors, and the 12th one is usually, we have those that have been confirmed, and then those that are just at the stage of, we are still studying. The issue of termination of pregnancy is one of them. First of all, globally, around the whole world, the upsurge in breast cancer across the whole world followed the legalization of abortion in the United States in the late 50s and followed in Europe in early 60s. In fact, Time magazine in 2007 made it a lead story. It covered one of its October editions, that the upsurge in breast cancer followed the legalization of abortion in North America in the late 50s, state by state, and then Europe in early 60s. There was an upsurge. What we find here, research we did at the University of Benin, is that among patients that have cancer, when you question them on the number of termination of pregnancies they've done, they are usually truthful, and they will tell you that we find out that those who've had several terminations tend to come down with breast cancer at an early age. At an early age. Those who come down with breast cancer at the age of 28, 32, 34, we find out that when you question them, you find out that they've had several terminations of pregnancy. Now, there is a link. Most women know, listening to me now, that when you get pregnant, the first sign that you have, even before you miss your period, is a change in your breast, changes in your nipple. Because when you get pregnant, it takes 2 weeks for you to miss your period. Even before you miss your period, there is changes in your nipple. Once a woman gets pregnant, the sperm and the egg meets and it forms what they call a zygote. The breast starts to prepare for lactation. The breast starts to prepare for breastfeeding for the next 9 months. And it's a gradual process. By the last 3 months, there are changes in the breast, preparing it for milk to be let down. Now, when you terminate a pregnancy suddenly, you abrogate these processes in the breast. Many girls know that when they terminate pregnancy at 12 weeks, 14 weeks, there is already milk in the breast. Now, when you do that, that milk is not let out. It remains in the breast, gets congealed in the ducts, and becomes an irritant. But when we published this, we had stiff opposition from the United States National Cancer Institute, because especially those who promote abortion as a weapon of population control, they didn't want to hear about it, that termination of pregnancy and abortions predispose to breast cancer. But some of us here, especially in Benin, we are convinced that termination of pregnancies serially, multiply, predisposes women to breast cancer a few years later. We have the figures to show that those who do that come down with breast cancer at an earlier age. And
well, all right, Professor Moses Momo, Dean of the Faculty College of Medicine at the University of Benin and former Commissioner for Health. Edo State would like to thank you for your very insightful contributions to our conversation this morning.
Thank you very much. Well, I was going to advocate that every woman in this country should be allowed to go to any health facility and ask for the breast to be clinically examined at least once in a year so that we'll have early detection. I'm happy about the Buhari administration's emphasis on primary health care. With the primary health care centers, rural women can go to the health center and have their breast examined and any lump detected early so that they can be cured of any disease when the diagnosis of breast cancer is made.
Thank you very much there. Let's come back to our Abuja studios. Dr. Swede, we have a number of tweets that have also come in, and everybody's concerned about what needs to be done. Let's take this one from Era Adebola. He has 2 tweets. It says, it's talking about some sour fruits. It says it's awesome and its antioxidant power is significant. Another one again by him, I learned from a professor of gerontology that a ball of fresh tomato taken daily can prevent prostate cancer. So, Dr. Oswide, tomato as a factor against prostate cancer, and then the antioxidants. When you see all kinds of teas, they will tell you antioxidant powers, X, Y, Z. How do those impact on cancer?
Yes, I think I mentioned that earlier. When I talked about Mediterranean diet, that includes tomatoes, carrots, cabbage, bananas, and so on. In fact, you see like a basket of fruits. And all the ingredients you use for making salad, they are all potent
antioxidants.
Yes. And things like onions, garlic, and so on. They are potent antioxidants. There's elements like selenium, as I said earlier, and zinc, so minerals. These by way of immunity, because by the way, before you develop any condition, the body has its own immune capabilities. There are killer cells that if your immunity is boosted, probably through the mechanism of boosting killer cells to the tumor and pressing down the promoters of development of that tumor. And they've advocated all sorts of, apart from these things, exercises, yoga, meditation, and so on. And they say that it has a way of retuning the cells, especially those that have genetic
free radicals
that have this BRCA gene, and tune them not to be so active towards promoting the cancer production. Yes.
All right, Dr. Sude, I'm sorry, we just have to go. We're up on time. Thank you very much for your contribution. Dr. Osude, of course, is a chief consultant urologist, first urologist the whole of the North, and of course was the first to carry out urethral prostatectomy in Nigeria in 1985 at the Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital, Zaria. We would like to thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. And
we also like to thank our oncologist here, Dr. Bello Abaka Mohammed, consultant clinical oncologist and immediate past head of Department of Oncology and Radiotherapy, National Hospital, Abuja. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
And from our JOTS Network studio, Dr. Ayuba Madaki Dauda, consultant histopathologist, JOTS University Teaching Hospital. Many thanks to you for joining in our conversation.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll take on sports.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Hello Nigerians, I am Chief Eric Mafia, president of Risco Foods Limited. As a practical manufacturer, Risco Foods produces proudly made in Nigeria products for every feeding for all Nigerians. Our sons and daughters can have better jobs and our economy can become bigger and stronger. Every time you buy imported products, you are importing unemployment, terrorism, kidnapping, crime and poverty into Nigeria. Please let us shine our eyes. Buy your products. Buy made in Nigeria because only Nigerian can make Nigeria great. Always buy made in Nigerian products like Lijico, tomato paste, seasoning cubes, and other made in Nigerian products. Support us to produce more products, create more employment, and grow our economy. As Nigerian manufacturers, we cannot afford to joke with your well-being. Do the smart thing and support government policies to make our economy great for all of us.
Jigo tomato paste, seasoning cubes, and other great products are proudly made in Nigeria by Erisco Foods Limited.
Why are you filming, Mommy?
To help people stop getting sick. People think it's the ever-changing weather during Harmattan that makes them sick. Actually, it's the germs. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs, including flu.
Dettol, endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
All right. Well, of course, we'd like to go to our companion segments now. And here is Salihu Abdullahi, our sports correspondent, with stories on grassroots sports development as well as boxing.
Thanks for joining us on sports. The Minister of Youth and Sports, Solomon Dalong, assured that ensuring effective management of sports in Nigeria still top his priorities. He said creating an enabling environment for other sporting events to strive apart from football becomes necessary.
I am going to pay attention to all the sporting activities that Nigerians are interested. We have basketball, we have tennis, we have taekwondo, we have wrestling, we have boxing, we have even the traditional sports, langa and kuku and the rest. This we are going to concentrate.
The minister promised to encourage grassroots sporting activities for easy identification of young talent.
There must be a paradigm shift which we are committed to it to ensure that we embark on developing sports. And in developing sports, it is grassroots concentrated.
It's an experienced Barcelona.
And in Europe, Barcelona reached the Copa del Rey final as they beat Valencia.
Maybe witnessed around Yewa, Jos, and their environ. Coastal cities like Port Harcourt, Lagos may also witness poor visibility within 2,000 meters or less for maximum and minimum temperature forecast. Stay tuned. That's it from Nigerian Meteorological Agency. Bye for now.
Thank you, Olechukwu Anoku, for the weather forecast. And that ends our contribution today on Good Morning Nigeria. We'd like to thank you very much and for your tweets. Do keep them coming. Don't forget, tomorrow is Friday. The program will return at the same time on the same station. I am Claire Adilabu Abdulrazak.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. Thank you for starting your day with us. See you tomorrow. And do have a nice day in the meantime.